What's up, all you ghouls and goblins? Welcome to the first ever Halloween special episode of Spoilers Only. Today, we will be discussing some of our favorite spooky shows, spooky movies, and anything in between. So carve some pumpkins, grab some candy, and get ready because this is going to get spooky.
It's going to be so fun.
So let's kick things off with talking about some of our favorite Halloween movies.
I think growing up, my favorite movies were Friday the 13th. Or just any Stephen King movies. I know I've told a lot of people that, from a very young age, my favorite movie was It from Stephen King. But I was never scared of it. I definitely always thought the movie was hilarious. My brother was scared of clowns. If you're listening, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to tell you business like that.
I have seen the It movies. I can say that I am not a fan of clowns. However, the movies did not freak me out that much.
I thought they were hilarious.
I'm like, some clowns I find kind of scary, but not as much as like a fear of heights. I have a fear of heights, and I think that overtakes clowns. So I'm okay with like clown stuff. I don't mind.
That's because it was hilarious. Because it was just a clown just harassing a bunch of 12-year-old kids. And they grow up and they come back to their hometown and they just kind of bonk this clown on his head and he dies. And that's it. That's the whole movie. Or like mini-series, I think that it was like it was tagged as a mini-series. But I remember being like 4 or 5 years old watching that movie and I was telling people this story, they probably think I'm deranged. Because, like I said, 4 years old, I'm just busted out laughing at this movie because it's hilarious. But it's a horror movie, and it's very gory at times. But I thought it was hilarious. It was just certain scenes that I was like, yeah, that's not scary at all. Ha ha! The little boy got his arm bitten off. Sucks for him.
So one of my movies from when I was younger that I would always watch around Halloween was Beetlejuice.
Ooh.
I think that's a classic that I think it could be watched any time of year, honestly. But I tend to watch it a few times every, spooky season because it's not as scary as some of the other horror movies that I enjoy watching. But, I just love it because it's got a lot of comedy to it. And it's just a fun movie overall. So I try to watch it at least once or twice, like every spooky season, because
I was Beetlejuice for Halloween a couple years ago.
Really?
Yes.
I love that.
I was like 15 or 16, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I was about 16 years old when I was Beetlejuice for Halloween.
I love that. I think the first time I watched it, I must have been like 8, maybe like 8 or 9, and I just never found it like scary. Like I always thought it was like a horror movie, and I guess in some ways it is, but to me, I just always thought it was just a comedy. But the one movie that scared me when I was younger, and I can't really watch it even older now, is Jumanji, like the original Jumanji.
Really?
It scared me. It actually scared me as a child. It really did.
What part?
I just remember, like, I think it was when they were originally playing and they were in the house, and I can remember like all these animals chasing them around the house, and it just freaked me out. Like I don't know why, because it's such a classic movie. I don't know why. Like I remember it was on TV like a couple years ago, and me being older, I literally couldn't sit through it. I was like, yeah, this is triggering me. I don't think I can watch this.
Don't get me wrong. That movie definitely was a little unsettling in scenes for me, but that's just because, at least in that one scene where they're in the attic and they're playing and there's like these giant spiders crawling towards them.
Yes.
That movie, that part, it just made me feel uncomfortable because, yeah, the spiders, they obviously are fake. They look fake. But it was just the idea of being chased by this giant, like, raccoon-sized spider. A movie that's not a horror movie, but did freak me out as a kid. You ever seen Small Soldiers?
I have not.
Oh my
Please tell me
God.
what that is.
I tell everyone this story. So Small Soldiers is basically about this boy who works in this toy store, and then he like comes across this one toy called a Gorgonite, and it's like this alien creature thing that was it was meant to be like this smart toy that helped kids learn about like geography and stuff, I think. But instead, during like the development, like they accidentally somehow put like military program chips into the dolls. So
Oh.
they were like super smart and like pretty much function like people. And then there were these like the soldier toys that were also put with like military chips in, but obviously they're military toys. So they have like the tactics and whatnot, and they're very aggressive and they're pretty much the bad guys. Like I said, they function like people, but they're just dolls. But the one part that freaked me out was when I was younger. So the soldiers are attacking the boy and this girl, and they decide to like make their army bigger by putting like microchips into like Barbie dolls. But so like when they bring the Barbie dolls to life, the Barbie dolls like start attacking the two teenagers, and that horrified me. I just thought like, okay, it was like it's like watching Toy Story but worse, in a worse that like in a sense that like I'm terrified to watch it. Now it's funny to think of, but I was horrified watching that scene because I always used to think like, okay, so what if I'm just sitting here one day and my Barbie dolls or any doll for that matter comes to life and they just start attacking me? I'm like 6 years old at this point, and there's nothing that I can do to fight off an army of dolls. And I had a lot of them, okay? Um, it even like inspired a bunch of dreams that I had when I was younger. So yeah, it used to scare me because like I had a lot of dolls, and I had a dream, or like I had several dreams where like so in the dream I would wake up in the spot that I went to sleep in real life. So let's just say like right here, like I fall asleep. So in the dream I'll wake up in this exact spot and everything will be the same except for like the dolls that are in the room will come to life, and like it felt real. But the dolls wouldn't just come to life and be like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" No, they would come to life and they would start attacking me. I would have like little Bratz dolls like chewing on my skin, like pretty much trying to skin me.
Oh my
That never
God.
happened in the movie, but that happened in my dreams. And I used to have so many of them. And like with that exact same like theme of me waking up in that like position that I fell asleep in. So like I like could have sworn that I was actually awake.
That's
I
terrifying.
get made fun of for this so much from my family. And don't get me wrong, it's
Really?
funny.
No, that
It's
sounds
funny.
terrifying.
It's funny now. It's funny now because like my dad sympathizes with me. He's like, yeah, that's pretty scary. But like overall, they're like, you really got scared from Small Soldiers? Yes, I did. Okay. And it wasn't because of the freaky looking Gorgonites. It wasn't because the overly aggressive like soldier toys. No, it was the Barbie dolls that was attacking the main character. I could not look at my brats the same for months. Like I said, it was like watching Toy Story, but with horror elements. That's my favorite scary movie, even though it's
I
not a
get
scary
that.
movie, it's a family movie.
Yeah, you know what? That
Nineties
kind of
kids.
reminds me of the Mummy movie. Like I know
Yeah,
there's been a few of those, but the first Mummy,
with Brendan
I can
Fraser.
remember, yeah, I can remember a scene with bugs. And when I was younger, bugs freaked me out.
Yes.
Like just any type of bug.
Mhm.
And so I can remember like there was a part in the Mummy, I guess maybe where they were inspecting like tombs or something. And I was like young when I watched it the first time, and I don't like things with bugs. I tend to stay away from that, and that kind of reminded me of that because the Mummy in my younger years was nightmare fuel for a few things.
this is really funny because everybody talks about like being like scared of like Courage the Cowardly Dog. That show, don't get me wrong, that show definitely has a lot of scenes that scared me as a kid, but the one that terrified me the most was definitely Small Soldiers. I'm reliving the dreams. There are some that I remember. There are some that like I remember like as vividly as it happened. And God, I was like 6 or 7 when these were happening.
A story that comes to mind like every Halloween is something that my mom told me from when she was younger. My aunt, so my mother's older sister, went to see the Amityville Horror when it came out. I think it was like around 1977. So my mom was 7 at the time, and my aunt was like in her teens, and she saw it. And in the movie, there were these pigs that had like beady red eyes. And back in like the 70s or early 80s, there was a toy called Zany Zappers. Pretty sure I'm saying that correctly. I'm pretty sure they were called Zany Zappers. And so my mom had seen the movie, I think, with my aunt. They either my aunt snuck my mom into the theater, or they saw it a couple years later, or something along the lines of they both saw it. So my aunt thought it would be funny to wear these zany zappers at night and wake up my mom and make pig noises. And it's like it's haunting.
That is so
Because
mean.
it is me. My mom was like 7 or 8 at the time, so kind of
Oh.
around like the same age that I like would see Jumanji and get freaked out by stuff that was in that. So every Halloween that story usually gets told a couple times. Especially when like they play the Amityville Horror on TV, and I say, "Oh, Mom, you want to watch that?" And she's like, "No, I can't relive that. It's too scary." So I guess one of my favorite Halloween movies of all time would be the Scream series.
I have a really funny story about that.
Please do
I have
tell.
never seen Scream. I have never seen Scream. And growing up, I confused Scream and Scary Movie because they based the first one off of Scream.
Hmm.
And in my head, like my brain confused like the titles. So as a kid, when people like talk about Scream, I would always think about Scary Movie. And I'm like, okay, well, this movie is not scary. It's hilarious. Like, haha, killer stabs out lady's breast implant, and y'all calling that scary? Did not realize that Scream was a movie on its own, and it took me a long time to learn that.
There have been 4, with a 5th one coming out January 14th, 2022, my birthday. But I honestly don't know if I will be seeing it, since I really enjoyed the first 2. The third one, in my opinion, was kind of meh, and I actually don't think I've ever seen the 4th one. So I'm still kind of on the fence about if I want to see that or not. The first movie, the opening scene, is a girl and her boyfriend get murdered by someone in the famous ghost face mask. And then throughout the first movie, you learn about Sidney Prescott, whose mother's death is approaching its first anniversary, and she was murdered. And a prime suspect for the mother's murder was Sidney's boyfriend, Billy Loomis. And, you see him kind of seem like a suspect as it goes on. Um, yeah, and it's Gail Weathers is Courtney Cox's character, and she's the one who suspects that it was Billy. Um, and one of the main things about the Scream movies is that at the end, when a lot of the characters end up getting murdered, it always turns out that there are 2 killers. There's not just one. So in the first movie, all of the people who end up dying, and I think there was at least 4 or 5 victims in the first movie, one of which was being the high school principal. I remember that. Um, it ends up being Billy Loomis and his friend Stu, and they were the two people that were killing everybody throughout this whole movie. And Sydney is the one who wait, is that right? Yeah, Sydney's the one who ends up taking them down. I can vividly remember the end scene where she kills Stu and she killed him with a television.
No.
Yeah.
You just pick it up
Yeah.
and throw it at him or something?
Either that or she like threw him through it or something. I remember that because like I remember there was like some electrocution and bang, he was dead. Um, and she also shot Billy in the head. So that's a lot for a high schooler to go through. Like that was a big that was a lot. And so the second movie takes place 2 years after what happened, the events of the first movie, and they're in college. And Gail is making a book about her life, about Sydney's life, that turns into a motion picture. And the movie within Scream is called Stab. And I always thought that was funny that they called it Stab. And the opening scene of Scream 2 is that 2 college students are killed in the theater while watching the new movie. Of course, by somebody in the mask. And, the news gets out. Sydney thinks that history is repeating its, and she is frightened. And, people start getting killed around the college campus. And the ending of Scream 2, in my opinion, I thought was more exciting than the first one. However, they are still connected because, like, I think one person probably couldn't watch Scream 2 and not have a lot of questions. Like, if they didn't see Scream 1, it just makes sense, like, to watch both of them. And the first killer that's revealed in the second movie is Billy Loomis's mother. And she was trying to recreate everything that was happening because she wanted to get back at Sydney for killing her son. And the other killer was one of the other college students named Mickey. And he was just like she hired him to help her, and he's just crazy. And he got super into it, and I think killed more people than they had originally planned on, because that was something that I kind of picked up at the end. Because at the end of the Scream movies, when the killers are revealed, they try to explain why, like they explain their motives for it. And I mean, um, Sydney and Gail are the people at the end of Scream 2 who end up, serving justice and killing the 2 killers. And then that segues into Scream 3, which I honestly don't have many thoughts about because I thought it was kind of underwhelming. And, a lot of people say that it kind of lost its appeal after the second one. It kind of lost its thriller touch. It was a little more comedic. And so I definitely recommend watching Scream 1 and 2 for like Halloween, because after the second one, you don't really have many unanswered questions that would be answered with a third movie. Then they came out with a fourth movie, and now they're coming out with a fifth movie. So I don't know how much longer this is going to go on, but I do like the fact that, excuse me, I do like the fact that a bunch of the original actors are coming back for the fifth movie, because it has been close to 20 years, I think, since the last one came out, or around maybe a decade or two. So it's exciting to know that there will be a new one, but I just kind of on the fence about seeing it because I just hold the first 2 movies to such a high standard that it's probably going to not be so great, but it's nice to see them back, and it's nice to see the characters' stories being continued.
I don't know why they would bring it back because, I mean, it has been so long and there's
Yeah.
already enough movies. And I feel like if everyone collectively decides or agrees on the fact that the last two aren't as good as the first two, why continue it? That and they've got like the Scream TV show. So I just think that it's too much. But I feel that same way about Halloween because if we're gonna talk about people them doing too much, is Halloween's at the top of the list with the fact that they have the original Halloween series, and then they came out with a new Halloween movie a couple years ago with Jamie Lee Curtis in it as well, and they're like, oh, so in this movie, pretty much the only movie in this timeline that is canon is the first one. All the sequels and whatnot, those don't exist except that one and this one. And it's like, so you're just not proud of your own movies now, huh? Is that what it is? Please just stop with the reboots and the refresh all the reboots and whatnot. I hate it. I hate it. Give me original idea, please. I got the hiccups.
Yeah, I know what you mean about all these reboots, and I think speaking of the Halloween series, I'm pretty sure that a new Halloween like just came out last week. I think it was Halloween Kills.
Yeah, I'm not gonna watch it. I might, but all in all, I don't have any plans to watch it just because um
Yeah.
like we get it. Michael Myers, he kills people. He can't kill Jamie Lee Curtis. That's it.
Yeah, I think the Halloween Kills movie, I think from what I've heard, it sort of sets it up as maybe the final one. And it's a chance for all of the original characters who survived the events of the other movies to come back and finally put an end to the terror of Michael Myers. So I don't know if I would watch it either. I know that it's in theaters and I think it's streaming on Peacock as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's there if I might watch it. Maybe I'll watch it this weekend. Who knows? But, I've never been too big of a fan of the Halloween movies.
Yeah.
Um, I guess it's just something that I've always heard a lot about, but I've just never really put a lot of time into like paying much attention to them. And I know that there have been a lot, so it's sort of just like when I see that like maybe a movie series that I'm not like familiar with has more than like maybe 5 movies, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get into it because that's
Fred.
just a lot to take on.
I almost said Freddie Mercury. No, wrong person. Freddie, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. They're like what? There's like 10.
I have heard that they are rebooting that as well.
Stop it.
I swear.
So
I
there's
swear.
7. There's 7 of them.
Yep, I heard that something's in development.
Please
So,
stop. You get it. He's a dude in a sweater with butter fingers butter
yep.
fingers, butter knives for fingers, who kills people in their sleep. God.
Butterfingers.
It took me so long to realize I was not saying butter knives. And anyway, so out of like the classic slashers, who would you rather be chased by? Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, or Jason, or Chucky?
Oh boy, that's a tough question. Um,
Or
I
Pennywise,
oof. Oh,
but not the current Pennywise. I mean, the Tim Curry Pennywise.
okay. I think because we were talking about Halloween, I'm gonna go with Michael Myers
Are you
because
crazy?
if this new movie that is out ends up being the last one and they're able to stop him, I'll know, okay, there's a way to stop him. And I'll just try to figure out what that way is. What
Fair
about
point.
you?
I mean, okay, so with Chucky, he's literally just a doll. Um,
Hmm.
who is murderable. People are just stupid and can't aim. Um, so, dude, I'd rather get chased by Chucky. Not being chased by a doll. All I need is either a long-ranged weapon or a giant metal baseball bat. You just start beating him profusely. What is he gonna do?
Mhm.
He's like 1 foot tall. Um,
I
it
think
would
that's
be
a
it
fair
it would
answer.
be like trying to fight a toddler with actual hand-eye coordination. So I'm not too threatened by him. With Freddy though, all you gotta do is just not be scared. And he's just like, oh, why you scared? And you can just start wailing on him. Plus, it's in a dream. Once you realize that, oh, this is just a dream, you have no power over me, I'm not scared of you, just like conjure up a weapon and just start beating him profusely. Um,
Those are valid points. I like that.
same with Pennywise. All you gotta do is just go, oh, I'm not scared of you. You're just a clown. Stupid little clown. Flip the script. You start bullying him, and then he starts crying, and then he disappears. That's exactly what happened in the movie. They didn't like kill him. They just like started talking about him. So all you gotta do is just pretty much with him and Freddy just hurt their egos just a little bit, and they'll stop killing.
Hmm.
So probably Freddy, because I don't know. I could like summon an army, and we can all just start knocking them, just start dog walking them
Yeah.
down. But speaking of Freddy, have you ever seen the Freddy versus Jason movie?
I don't think so. I
Really
don't think I have.
interesting. I was talking with a customer about this at work a couple weeks ago. It was a very interesting movie. Um, a very interesting concept. I remember really enjoying it when I saw it because at the time my favorite slasher film was Nightmare on Elm Street.
Hmm.
No, no, I lied. I lied. It was it was Friday the 13th. I don't know. Oh, I remember enjoying both of them, but I preferred Friday the 13th just because, you know, just a guy with a machete. I just remember being 11 years old and genuinely believing that I myself could stop this man. Uh, Jason Voorhees had nothing on me. I had strategic plans to like stop this guy. So I remember really liking the Friday the 13th movies because I thought that I could be the final girl, even though I didn't know what that word meant.
Another movie that I saw when I was young, but it didn't really scare me, was the original Psycho from Alfred Hitchcock.
I didn't think I seen it.
And
I know about it.
the TV show Bates Motel was like a prequel to that. And I actually dressed up as Norma Bates
I
in
think I remember that. I
2017.
remember that.
Yeah.
I think
I can't believe that's how long ago that was. But that was like a really the ending was freaky because basically the movie revolves around mother and son, and they're very, very attached to one another.
Can I just say
Um,
one thing? How big of a weirdo do you have to be for your name to be Norma and you name your son Norman? Please get creative. Like, I feel like it would be better if you like named him something like Timothy. This is Timothy Bates. That's better than Norman Bates when your mom's name is Norma. Whatever though. Continue.
but basically the movie revolves around Marion Crane, who is like one of the first characters you see, and she is on the run because she stole money from her like employer, like her boss, um, because she was trying to run away from her boyfriend. And she stops at the Bates Motel for the night and meets Norman Bates, who is very interested in taxidermy, which is a very, it's a very interesting thing to point out. And also, as the movie goes along, you learn more about his relationship with his mother. And Marion ends up getting murdered. Like that's this scary thing. But the scene in which she gets killed, like the blood and the knife is just so 1960. Like I always thought that it was a really scary movie, and like at a young age, oh, maybe I shouldn't be watching this. But the actual scene where she gets killed, it's I mean, it was probably scary for the time.
I
I
was
mean,
gonna
there was
say like
also,
classic horror movies definitely aren't as scary as the ones now, but that's just because movies now they try to traumatize you more than entertain you with horror. You
yeah.
guys are doing it wrong, but whatever.
Yeah, and there's a scene in the movie, I can't remember who it is, but they're like falling backwards down a flight of stairs, and it looked really bad. Like it looked really fake. But I mean, for the time, 1960, yes, that was probably frightening. But the way
Fuck them
that
all,
they
push him down the
filmed
stairs
it,
for real.
the way that they filmed it, it's basically just like probably a green screen or some weird background with just this person, waving their arms, and it was just very awkward, you know. Um, but one of the parts that like freaked me out was the ending. He killed his mother and her partner 10 years before this movie takes place, and the mother's mummified corpse, he was keeping it and treating it as if she was still alive. And you see that like at the end, like you see the corpse and it kind of like scares you. And that was like one of the only parts of the movie that I found like remotely scary.
Could have just left her
It's
alive if you
still
could
like
do
a
all that.
classic. It's still a classic like horror movie because it inspired so many other things. But, it's, of course, I don't think it's as scary as like Scream, for an example, or even a newer movie like the Quiet Place movies. The Quiet Place movies don't have a lot of gore in them, or, even like noise per se, but there are like some jump scares, and there's some of that old movie feel in those.
I like movies where the storyline makes it scary rather than like, oh, everybody got shot in the face and we're gonna show it.
Yeah.
That's not scary. That's just irritating. That's just like I said. They just would prefer to like traumatize you with movies rather than like actually writing a decent movie. One movie that is scary because of the story alone is Coraline.
Mm.
Although it's a kids movie, that story it gets a little deeper than just like lady kidnapped children. I was in the first grade when I first saw that movie. My dad picked me up early from school, and we went to the theaters, and we went to go see Coraline in 3D.
Mm.
And it was I enjoyed it. It spooked me a little bit, but I enjoyed it as a kid. And now when you like watch it as an adult, the story itself is very it's horrifying because it's more than just she was kidnapped. She was like really like sucking the souls out of children and leaving their bodies trapped in another world.
Yeah, that's some spooky stuff right there.
Like I said, it was a story itself that made it scary, not jump scares or gore. That's
Yeah.
true art right there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And like with A Quiet Place and the A Quiet Place 2 that came out earlier this year, I did not expect to like those, only because
I enjoyed them.
for a for a while I didn't want to have anything to do with scary movies or like horror movies. I would just be like, nah, I'm not into it. But I finally watched A Quiet Place about 2 years ago, maybe just around a little after it came out. And it was just such a eerie type of movie. I thought it was very creative because you could not make noise or you will be hunted. And I just really loved how, because sometimes in scary movies, um, a lot of it might rely on music or it might rely on dialogue. And, the main character or one of the main characters is deaf, and they use sign language as well in the movie.
Mhm.
And it's the scariest thing to me, I thought, was a feeling where if you're like loud or if you're just talking, this mysterious creature will come out of nowhere and just kill you. And that was always scary to me because when I was watching it, I was thinking like, I would probably be one of the first people to die
Yeah.
because I am loud. I can be loud. I can talk loud or sing or do something.
I was gonna
And that
say,
just
yeah, I talk too
always
much. I would die in
terrified
five
me.
minutes.
It just
So
always terrified.
I feel like The Quiet Place was like it's a really great movie. It was very original. Um, and we don't really see too much of that considering we are in the middle of reboot city.
Yeah.
Um, it's not very fun here. Horror movies, it's either they're super corny, Malignant, or they are like remakes. Like they're remaking Chucky
Yeah.
again. They're remaking or in the remaking like another Halloween series. Uh, what else are they remaking?
Well,
Scream.
actually, when it comes to the Chucky, I think they were also um I think they also did
Continuing it. They
a
were
TV
continuing it.
series as
Yeah,
well.
that's what I mean. Like they're with the show they're continuing it, but with the movie that they made like a couple of years ago with Aubrey Plaza, like is that like a part of the original Chucky timeline, or is that just like no. I think that was a remake because I actually watched those movies last night, because I've not seen them in years, and
Hmm.
I just wanted to like rewatch them and whatnot. So when I went to go, I didn't watch it, but I went to go check out the details and information about the remake from 2019, I think it was. The characters had the same names, so it's just a remake.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, it is like there haven't been a lot of original horror movies. I think in like the bigger picture, there has been a lot of remakes or sequels or prequels or just people, jumping off of different characters, or characters that aren't theirs and they just, write something new. But talking about horror movies specifically, I think about the Cloverfield trilogy or
Oh my God, I love
Cloverfield series,
those.
I should say.
I love those
Yeah, like
movies. I have another story about
those.
those.
Wait, I think I know which story you're telling me. I think I know which one you're talking about.
I tell it a lot because it's hilarious.
Yeah, didn't like you were home and
I
you
was a
thought that it was real footage?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. I was a very naive kid. It was when I was in the third grade. Um, Me and my brothers, we ended up staying home from school, and I never knew why. Um, my oldest brother was like, "Yeah, mom just said like, no, we can stay home from school or whatever today," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's cool." So we all like brushed our teeth and whatnot, got breakfast and stuff, and we went into her room and we watched Cloverfield. But I got into the room late, so I never saw that like the intro of the movie.
Mhm.
Never saw the title cards or like production company titles and whatnot. So I just saw just footage. And the date that was in the movie was like 2 days or like a week prior from the day we were watching it. So I was thinking that like, oh, this is like footage, and this is like real life footage that like the news found, and they're displaying it on TV for us to like get like up to date with current events. And it was storming outside, like storming really bad, or it was beginning to storm really bad. And in my head, I'm like, oh, this is definitely in relation to that. The storm has something to do with these alien creatures that are outside that we're looking at on this camera TV footage right now. I thought it was the end of the line for us.
Terrifying. Terrifying.
I was in the third grade. It's I feel like that one's funnier than the small soldiers thing, because at least Cloverfield didn't make any dreams for me. And mind
Yeah.
you, while I'm watching this, I'm not voicing any opinions or thoughts over this movie. I'm like, oh, that's nice. We're all just watching it. We're all just watching it, and I'm not saying a word because like internally I'm being like, okay, so like, is this real or not? So I'm freaking out in silence. But my brothers are loving this movie.
Yeah, and the Cloverfield like movie, the found footage Cloverfield movie made me think of how it sort of was inspired by the Blair Witch Project, because that's
Blair Witch changed a
found
lot of
footage.
things.
Yeah. So I don't know if you could say Cloverfield is entirely original. However, I really loved that trilogy, and I remember 10 Cloverfield Lane was
I
like
went
one
to
of the
the
newer
theaters
ones.
to see that.
I really enjoyed that one too.
So, what are some of the shows that you've seen that would fit like the Halloweeny theme?
Well, over the years, I've actually never really watched too many scary shows, which sounds weird because I do tend to enjoy horror movies and thrillers. But over the years, I've enjoyed The Walking Dead. I've enjoyed Bates Motel, which is the prequel to Psycho. I've enjoyed the show Grimm, which was like a freaky fairy tale type show. Another show that actually popped into my head while I was thinking about The Walking Dead was Z Nation, which used to be on the Sci-Fi Network, and it was like a comedic Walking Dead that kind of like I started watching that and then it got me interested to The Walking Dead. But, I'm not too big of a fan of zombie things in general, but I think one of my favorite scary shows, spooky shows from the past few years would have to be Stranger Things on Netflix, because that like took the world by storm when it came out.
I remember it took me a while to actually watch it because I was kind of annoyed because everyone was talking about it at first. But then I actually watched it and I was like, okay, yeah, it's pretty good. I thought everybody was just being annoying. I do think they fell off after a couple seasons.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about that because I just remember it was so popular, and I'm always like looking at Netflix to see what like the good new shows or movies are, and I saw it so much that I kind of wanted to be like that one person that hadn't seen it, just to get a feel if this was super popular and it was really good, or if it was just a lot of people watching it and a lot of people like jumping on it and saying, "Oh my god, it's so good." But the other point that you made about the first like couple seasons, I think the first two are like super good, solid. Like I would go back and rewatch those. Very enjoyable. I'd say like 9 out of 10. But after that, I definitely agree with you that it kind of fell off a bit.
I feel like it would have been perfect as like a 2-season limited series. Season 1 introduced the characters. all that good stuff. Season 2, they introduce new characters and then dive into like Eleven's backstory, and then they could have just like wrapped it up at the end. Season 3 was a bit excessive. Is there 4 seasons out yet?
I know that they're filming one, so I know it'll be soon.
I just didn't know if it was season 3 or season 4 that was out. Like that was like the 4th of July themed one. Okay, so there's 3
Yes,
seasons
I'm
now.
pretty sure that was last summer. But I know that they are coming out with a new one, and I think it's very shortly. I think it's before the end of this year. And I have heard that the Duffer Brothers, who created this series, have said that they actually expect it to end around season 4 or 5. So it probably
Should have
will
ended
not
at season 2.
continue. Yeah, it should have, because I think it would have sort of cemented its place in history. I think it would have been like the one of those iconic like 1 to 2 season shows. Sort of like in the way that like Freaks and Geeks, because that only was 1 season. And that's like such an iconic piece of television.
I feel like Freaks and Geeks could have went for. I think that Freaks and Geeks we could have seen more of it.
Yeah.
Season one season was good. However, I feel like we deserve to see a second season at very least.
I do too. I mean, I think those characters, like, their stories needed to be told. I feel like there was so much more there. But I think because it ended up being 1 season, and nowadays you go into it, for someone who hasn't seen it, you go into it knowing that there's just that 1 season. It's iconic in a lot of ways because it captures, adolescence and high school and everything, um, like school life, in just those 12 or 14 episodes, however long it lasted for. And I think with Stranger Things, yeah, definitely. I have thoughts. But I think with Stranger Things, if it had ended after season 2, I think it could have just been one of those iconic shows that you watch every Halloween, maybe like you binge it every October, and it's just like an iconic thing. I think if you like, I think you can have like too much of a good thing, and I think that's what has been going on with Stranger Things, because it's just not pulling me in like it used to. But I mean, I was excited last year when the new season came out. I thought it was like really good, but it just didn't have that
original
exciting
flair.
feel. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It felt like a new series.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what season 4 has to bring with us, but I feel like, they put too much of the sensationalism into the first 2 seasons. After that, it feels like a separate show. Or maybe it's just because there isn't like as much hype around it, because the initial hype, because I remember when like the whole world like was obsessed with that cast, and now there's just some other people.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. I do remember there was that original year. I think it was 2016 was the first season, and I mean, it was everywhere. And like I admit I have some merch, and I have like some t-shirts and stuff from that original time, because I think just everyone was obsessed with it. It was just this new thing, and I think especially in 2016, like Netflix was becoming super popular, and they were just starting to make these and like put their names on these like really creative and innovative shows and movies. And I think, like I said, I think there can be too much of a good thing. And I think how they have tried to expand it, add more characters, add other storylines, it just doesn't have that like original feeling like it did, like you said.
Or maybe there could have been a way that for them to have 4 seasons without third one feeling, not as good. But also, there's if the show's gonna go on for a while, there is gonna be a season that's just not as good as another one.
Mm-hmm.
Or, an episode, a couple episodes is not just as good as the rest. Like super long show, Supernatural. Went on for 15 seasons. Yeah. 15 seasons. Trust me, there's a couple seasons as a whole that just weren't as good. But me being like 13, I had to binge watch all of them. Regardless,
Mm-hmm.
I forced myself to sit through a lot of them. Got to see the calm. Well, I got to see, the rainbow at the end of the storm, or however that saying goes.
Yeah, and I think also, um, you know, something that we had talked about before was like the Scream movies is a good example of it because, the first two, in my opinion, but I have heard other people express this as well, the first two are just really good movies on Rotten Tomatoes. They have like 80%, 90% scores. They have relatively high scores. But the third one and anything following the third is in the 40s and 30s and 20s. So I think over time, either viewers, watchers, they just kind of maybe get bored with these characters, or something happens in the creative process that just doesn't draw you back in like it used to. And I think with Stranger Things, I think that's true because I'll just repeat it. The first two seasons I think were really good, and they like you said also they could have ended it there, and it could have been like Stranger Things 2-season show. They could have continued it, but they chose not to, and it's still iconic. And now that it keeps going on, it might get repetitive at times, or I think I'm afraid that if it keeps going on, it'll kind of distance itself from the original excitement of the show as it just tries to keep up with the times, become newer. The cast is getting older. And so I think a lot of dynamics can change with the characters as well. They're not like the same group of kids that we first met in the first season. They're a lot older now,
It'll be a
and a lot
time
of time
jump.
has passed. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it, but I know how I feel about just like a TV lover that the same feelings aren't there because it was everywhere those first 2 years. Like you could not escape like Stranger Things fever. And now I think it has died off a little bit, but who knows? It might come back better than it was, or it might just kind of be a repeat of the same thing that we saw last year. But I'll be watching. I'm a proud Netflix subscriber, so I'll be watching and I'll be, seeing what happens because there's usually not that many Netflix shows I have not seen. I try to keep up with as much as possible, but since I'm already involved with the Stranger Things characters and storyline, I'll most likely be checking it out whenever it comes out.
I definitely will. I think another example of too much of a good thing would be like the Conjuring movies.
Yes.
Because the first couple ones were pretty good. Then they just became too much. I haven't seen the latest one, but I think the last one, because they have this whole like Conjuring cinematic universe
Hmm.
with a Conjuring, the Nun, the Annabelle, and there's like another one, I think. Anyway, yeah, I just think that it's too much going on.
Yeah, and I have to say I
Did we
have
did
not
we really
seen
need three Annabelle movies?
Yeah, I have not seen a lot of the movies that are in the Conjuring universe, but I am familiar with the amount of movies there are, and it sort of has that feeling of that they just kind of took it and ran with it and just are making as many as they can.
I'm not gonna Okay, so I'm gonna bust my brother out once more in this episode. So after that one Conjuring movie about The Nun. My brother was scared of nuns. Mind you, he's like 20, 21 years old now. So this happened in his not childhood, and he just was kind of scared of nuns after watching The Conjuring. Sorry.
Oh.
Sorry to tell people about that, buddy, but I had to. It's I just thought that was funny to mention.
Yeah, no, it can happen though. People can get freaked out by some strange
Well,
things.
what I think was a better version of those movies, not a better version, but see, The Conjuring, they were good. They just kind of overdid it just because there's so many movies and so many different like different like series. So there's The
Mhm.
Conjuring, and then there's like other movies in The Conjuring storyline that aren't The Conjuring, like Annabelle
Yeah.
and whatever other movies are in that universe about Ed and Lorraine Warren and their paranormal discoveries or adventures, which apparently they were like total frauds. So that's real fun. But a movie that I thought was really good that not many people talk about as much anymore is Insidious.
Mm.
I remember really I remember really enjoying those movies with my mom when I was younger. And I remember when those came out, we ended up watching them at home. Um, my mom, she was like super excited to watch it. She didn't want to wait till like the sun to go down. So we ended up like putting blankets over the windows to make it dark in the living room. Once again, my brother was scared of the movie. I feel like this show is saying a lot more about him. I'm sorry to keep busting him out and his fears about different movies. If I can think of some more, I'll definitely say them out loud. I will not hesitate to bust them out once more. It's becoming entertaining saying this on air. For me at least.
You know, another movie series that just popped into my head when you're thinking about horror movies, but I did not particularly enjoy these, were the Purge movies. Have you ever seen those?
Unfortunately, yes. Another one
Yeah.
that I'm not gonna say it's too much of a good thing because I would say like the first one, only the first one was necessary because
Yeah.
it's a movie about one day out of the year where you can. It's not even like a full day. It's like what 12 hours.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like a half a day out of the year where you get to do anything. My thing about those movies is a lot of y'all need therapy because if if your first thought is to kill somebody, if anything in the world is legal, there are no laws. Basically, you can do anything you want without legal consequences. And for your first thought to be, you know what, I'm going to go on a murder spree. Please see a doctor. You need to be
Mhm.
sedated and heavily medicated. Because immediately my first thought would be, all right, I'm going after the banks. I'm going after the banks. I'm going after the banks. They are insured. I will
Yep.
take just below the insured threshold. Um, hit like 2, 3 banks, and we're good. We're good. We are
Yeah.
good. I'm gonna go to Walmart, take myself a flat screen, one of those like $1,100 flat screen TVs. I don't know. I would have some fun.
Yeah.
Take some
I
merchandise
mean,
from stores rather than murdering people. But maybe that's just I don't have beef with people, so that would never cross my mind.
yeah, I've never enjoyed the Purge movies. I remember I believe there have been 3 so far, and they also made a TV
Really,
series.
I feel like there's more.
And I caught some of the TV series. It was okay. I believe it was on USA Network. I believe it was
That's why I don't
canceled after
remember
one
it.
season.
Good.
Yeah, it was just I guess the concept of the purge always kind of freaked me out. Sort of like A Quiet Place though, because like I had said, I am loud and I would be worried that I would be murdered, but the purge always freaked me out because just the fact that 12 hours anything is legal and the first thing people think about is, "Hey, I'm just going to go like murder some people." That's just freaky to me.
I've
Like,
heard no reason at all though. Me and
yeah.
my me and my family have always talked about like, yo, if that ever happens, we're gonna need like that house that Will Smith had in I Am Legend. Please tell me you've seen that movie.
Yeah. Yes, I have.
Okay, good. I thought you were gonna say yeah. But yeah, like how after like sunrise, I was gonna say after sunfall, after nightfall or around sunset, he like the house is going into complete lockdown. I need that. I would need that. Nobody gets in, nobody gets out. I hope they never make another Purge movie. If it's the last thing Hollywood does. Before we do wrap this conversation up, are there any honorable mentions you would like to mention? As far
You
as
know what? I think we covered a lot of good content, good spooky season content. I'm sure that once this episode is out, I will think of something else that I forgot to mention, but I guess
do that all the
that
time.
will kind of, yeah, I know.
I do
That'll
it each
kind of
time.
maybe set it up for Halloween, a second annual Halloween episode,
I was gonna say
maybe
save it
coming
for
in the
next.
future.
You gotta keep that under wraps for a whole year.
Yeah.
I think
I
my
gotta
only
start writing
honorable
stuff down now.
mention would probably be The Craft. Although for some reason it's seen as a horror movie, but it's not in my book a horror movie. It's just a movie about some teenage witches, and then a new girl comes along and just kind of messes it up for everybody. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah, I remember watching that growing up with my mom and really enjoying it because I enjoy the whole like witchcrafty stuff in movies. I think that is really good, and I think that that was a really good execution in the movie. But it
Hmm.
is also getting a lot of popularity, and it's really funny because I'm like, very nice. It's a very nice movie. I actually dressed up as Nancy for Halloween last year. Don't know why that confused me. That
Oh,
was last year. It was last year.
nice.
Um, but yeah, I'm definitely a firm believer in Sarah being the bad guy in that movie. If anybody would like to hear me out as to why, feel free to ask. If not, keep it to yourself. And if you disagree, also keep it to yourself.
I think for me, an honorable mention would probably be The Lost Boys from 1987.
Mm.
That was a movie that I have not seen in ages. However, it was one of my favorite movies growing up because I definitely had an 80s phase when I was a child, and I would love like The Goonies and Stand By Me and Ferris Bueller's Day Off, all the
As you should.
classics. Yeah, and The Lost Boys was something that I loved because I grew up watching 24 with Kiefer Sutherland, and it was nuts. It was nuts to see Jack Bauer as a vampire. So that was always a fun watch. Maybe I'll rewatch that before
I
spooky season is over.
I
It's
just
been a
forgot
while.
the other honorable mention.
Go for it. What is it?
Anyway, so another Stephen King movie that I really enjoyed when I was younger, Storm of the Century. I don't hear many
Hmm.
people talking about it as much as they do like Pet Cemetery or It. Storm of the Century, I remember like I thought the movie was genius. No, but I did really enjoy it just because it was kind of freaky. Like there's just this it's just a small town and this strange man comes into town and he just starts kidnapping children. It was insane.
Mm,
Uh, Another Stephen
yeah.
King movie was Sleepwalkers, which was really weird. I recently rewatched it just to just to rewatch it because I remember watching that with my movie. My mom had a lot of Stephen King movies on DVD. growing up, so I witnessed that, and I did not realize how gross that movie was. It felt very short, and I think that's just because some of Stephen King's movies are incredibly long. Like I remember Storm of the Century being on 2 separate discs, as well as it being on 2 or 3 separate discs, just because it's a very long movie. But it was kind of gross because it involved a lot of incest. A lot of mother-son
I was gonna
incest.
say. I was gonna say Stephen King is definitely like the master of horror movies because I haven't really seen.
But like, what was even the
I
purpose
can't really.
of all of that?
I can't.
Sorry.
I can't really think
incest.
of another person who's written and just developed a lot of really good horror movies, and over the years he just has so many hits.
You know what's
And
the
he has
best
a
horror
lot of movies
movie?
as scary as
You know what's
well.
the best horror movie?
What? Small Soldiers?
Let's just end this episode. I was gonna say X-Men because they are so bad. Anyway, good night. No, just go back. You were saying, I'm sorry.
You're fine. No,
I
I
don't
was
know
gonna
why
say
I felt
Stephen
inclined to say
King.
that.
Stephen King has made a lot of really good horror movies over the years. Some of my favorite Stephen King ones would be like Stand By Me is like a favorite movie of mine. I know that's not a horror movie per se, but it has sort of like a scary feel to it, so it might count.
Never
But I
seen it.
also
I get bullied by my friends for saying that too. And my
Oh,
mom when she found that I'd never saw it. So
it's very good. It's very good. Very emotional movie. And the 2 newer It movies that came out more recently, I thought those were particularly really cool. And Pet Cemetery is like a classic Stephen King movie. I know they did like a remake a couple years back,
still
but
haven't
funny
seen it.
story
I don't think you
about
need to touch it.
I know. Funny story about Pet Cemetery. When I was younger, my mom told me that if I was a boy, she was going to name me Gage. Because she loved that name from Pet Cemetery. She loved the name. So anytime somebody mentions Pet Cemetery, I'm like, you know what? My name was almost Gage.
Hilarious.
So thank you to everyone who listened in as Inea and I discussed some of our favorite spooky shows, movies, and just some spooky, fun Halloween memories from the past few years. Once again, this has been Spoilers Only. If you enjoy our show, please subscribe on our YouTube channel and follow us on Twitter at Spoilers Only Duh.
You can check out our podcast on anywhere that podcasts are available. You can check out the link tree that we have provided on our Twitter. Share it with a friend. All that jazz, all that good stuff. And also have a very happy Halloween. If you get any good candy, please send it my way. Anyway, good night.
We hope to see you guys next time on another edition of Spoilers Only.